right, I'm going to have us go ahead and get started. If you have not yet met me, I'm Katie Toth. I'm a wealth advisor here at Fulcrum Financial Group, and we are so excited to be partnering with Ross Retman from Delaware, as well as Jeffrey Lanza. Jeff was an FBI agent for over 20 years, and he investigated cybercrime, organized crime, and human trafficking, as well as terrorism. And we're going to be focusing today on identity theft and cybercrime. And I'm going to pass it over to Ross to share a little bit, a few more comments before we get started.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate the opportunity to partner with the Fulcrum team today. Means a lot to be in front of everybody and share a really interesting topic. As Katie mentioned, I guess I'll do a brief little background on Jeff and then share a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, and then I'll pass it over to the main speaker. Like Katie mentioned, Jeff has a really unique and interesting background. He was a FBI special agent for over 20 years, during which he investigated, like Katie mentioned, cybercrime, organized crime, human trafficking, terrorism, and everything in between. Jeff also has lectured at two very prestigious universities, Harvard and Princeton, and he has written two highly reviewed books. If your house is anything like mine and you have run out of Netflix content, you are in good hands, because Jeff was featured in a Netflix documentary about the FBI, and he often appears on national television programs where he talks about the growing threat of cybercrime, much like we'll do today. Really three main topics that Jeff will address. First off, he's going to talk about how to prevent identity theft, very high level topic. He's going to talk about how to watch out for tricks. And lastly, how to protect your computer. So with that being said, once again, great to be with the Fulcrum Financial team. We really appreciate your partnership. And I will pass it off to Jeff to start the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ross. Thank you, Katie. And thank you all for being here. Welcome to the event today. As Ross mentioned, I spent 20 years with the Bureau, and for most of my career, I was involved in white-collar crime. Wait, that doesn't sound right. I investigated white-collar crime. I wasn't involved in white-collar crime. But cybercrime and identity theft are two types of white-collar crime that we'll be addressing today. And it's all about how to stay safe. And sometimes the national media will call me, as Ross mentioned, and they'll ask me to do television interviews. This is a screenshot of me being interviewed on CNBC. But they asked me on this show about how the hackers commit the crimes. We'll talk about that today and how to stay safe. They also asked me about the incentive for the crimes. It's almost always for profit. We can't change that part of it, but we can make it more difficult for criminals to reach that incentive. And there's several ways to do that, which we'll get into today. So first I'll cover identity theft. We'll tackle cybercrime from two angles. And there is a permanent resource for this presentation. It is my handout that's composed of 5 pages. What you're looking at here is the executive summary of the handout. And that covers everything we're talking about today, plus 4 more pages that have lots of resource information. So you'll get this later from your Fulcrum advisor. This will be something you want to keep by the computer, just in case some of these issues pop up from time to time. All right, again, welcome to the event. Thank you for spending time with me today. Protecting your identity, 3 key things to do here. And the first is to create an online Social Security account. Now, this is particularly important if you are 62 or older and are eligible to collect benefits. Even if you don't want to start collecting benefits, you want to set up this online account, because that prevents a criminal with your Social Security number from potentially getting access to that account, setting up an account, using your identity, and having your benefits sent to their bank account. And that would be a big mess to unwind. Even at a younger age, you want to set this account up, because that's how you track your Social Security benefits throughout your lifetime. Now, the advisors that you work with at Fulcrum Financial, they know a lot about Social Security as part of retirement planning. As part of fraud prevention, we want to make sure we have this account set up So we can't be victimized this way. It's easy to do at ssa.gov. Check off that box, and that's one less way to be victimized. Second in this category is to freeze your credit reports. We almost have to assume that our Social Security number is out there, potentially in the hands of a criminal. It could be on the dark web waiting to be sold to a criminal. And we have to take steps to make sure it's not used for further fraud than more than what I just mentioned. So what criminals can do with a social is open up credit card accounts. They may get loans in your name and other types of credit. But they can't do that if you have frozen your credit reports. That just prevents them from doing that because the credit issuer cannot issue credit, unless they check your credit history. But they can't do that if your credit reports are frozen. So how do you freeze your credit reports? So on the handout that you'll get later, you'll see information about the credit reporting agencies. There's 4 of them in total. Most people are surprised to know there's a 4th credit reporting agency. It's called Innovis. And it's being used more and more to check people's credit. So we want to make sure that we freeze not just the major 3, but the 4th one as well. The websites are the easiest place to freeze your credit reports, and that's the best way to do it. Calling them or writing them is much more difficult to freeze your credit report that way. So if you went to Experience site, I'll give you one example. You simply set up an account, you freeze your credit report after they verify your identity. And it's free to do that. It doesn't cost any money. It doesn't affect your credit card relationships or your credit scores. You've got that one done. The other 3 work about the same way. Now, to lift the freezes, you come right back to those sites and lift the freezes temporarily if you need to get credit checked yourself for a new credit card, a home refi, a car loan. You can lift the freeze temporarily and then freeze it again to stay protected. And then one more thing, children can be victimized by identity theft. Federal law recognizes that this is a risk and allows a parent to create a credit report for a child. You set it up because they shouldn't have one, and you freeze it at the same time. That freeze can be lifted when they become an adult, and that keeps them safe from potentially years of fraud. So all of these are done about the same way. This is just one example. Highly recommend freezing your credit reports. I've done it myself, so I know how easy it is and how beneficial it can be. Now, last in this category is to protect your information from attempts to get it. I'll start with your mail. If you have a mailbox like this at your house, please don't ever do this. And you know what I mean. Don't mix pansies with salvia. They just don't work well together at all. Of course, what I'm talking about is the flag. Criminals will steal mail from mailboxes before the post office comes to get it. Particularly what they look for are checks. And if you have a check in a mailbox, criminals will take it, they'll wash off the ink and write the check out to themselves. So take checks to the post office. When you write checks, use gel pens versus ballpoint ink. Gel pens can't be as washed off as easily, but still take them to the post office, or even better, pay bills online. It's a lot more secure than having checks go through the mail system. Also, when you take your documents to go out to the trash, make sure you shred properly. Anything more than just your name and address, which is not sensitive, but anything more than that should be shredded with a secure shredder that you see on the screen, one of those 3 varieties, to protect those outgoing documents. And when it comes to your paper, you may consider signing up for electronic delivery. It's more than just about going green. You will save some paper, but it's also about fraud prevention, as criminals will target those items in incoming mail, also target them in trash if they're not shredded properly. So we want to make sure we eliminate that risk, and e-delivery is a great way to do that. Also, sometimes criminals will call us on the phone and try to get information. The rule I always have is someone's calling you, no matter who they say they are. It could be a major government organization. It could be a major retailer. Don't believe them necessarily. Don't give information to people who call you, these unsolicited phone calls. And may try to get access to your information, to steal your identity, or even get access to bank accounts through some of the tricks that they have. Text messages the same way. In fact, they mix these up to reflect what's going on in the world. Don't respond to unsolicited text messages with personal information. Now, some of these emails, these are just 2 I got recently. I thought I'd show them to you. I'm seeing more and more of these because people are not responding to phone calls. The robocalls are being handled in various ways to eliminate some of that problem. So now we're getting more emails where they're trying to get people to respond to these type of inquiries and to provide information, and also maybe access to financial accounts. So watch out for these tricks as well. And here's an email that looks like it's coming from the government, but if you look very closely at it, I doubt the Treasury Department is communicating from a Gmail account and asking you in a non-secure email for personal information, including your routine number. Now, what is a routine number anyway? I think they mean routing number, but why would they need that if they're going to send you a check, which is what they say in the contents of the email? So that doesn't make sense either. Here's a question for you to ponder. Are there more Elvis impersonators in the world or IRS website impersonators? According to Wikipedia, there's a lot of Elvis impersonators, and if only 1/10 of that amount was correct, I'd still think there'd be too many Elvis impersonators in the world. But what we're talking about now is really fake websites, imposter sites that have been set to trick people into going there and maybe putting in personal information. At the peak of COVID, a lot of fake IRS sites set up. So how do you know you're on the right site, whether it's an IRS or anything? If you're going to put in personal information on a website, you want to make sure there's a lock in the top left corner. That padlock indicates a secure connection. Now, you've probably heard that already, but did you know you can click on that padlock and that reveals a drop down that tells you a third party has verified the authenticity of the site. So you're in a place where it matches where you want to be. So always check that padlock to make sure before you put in personal and sensitive information on any site. All right, so we've covered a lot so far. We've created your online Social Security account, freezing credit reports, protecting attempts to get your information from your mail, your trash, and also from emails and phone calls and fake websites. If you're careful about all these things, you've got a long way to staying safe from identity theft. Let's talk next about some of the tricks that the criminals use to try to deceive us. Before I start this section, I usually like to answer a question that people often ask me when I do in-person events. And that is, Jeff, when did you join the FBI? 1988 is the answer. I have a picture of me getting my credentials back then. And you might be wondering, is that some undercover guy going into the FBI with a disguise on? I'd be a terrible undercover agent, so I know that's me in 1988, 34 years ago now. A lot of people also ask me why I wanted to become an FBI agent. And that I can trace that interest back to me growing up. I come from the East Coast. I grew up in Connecticut. I come from a big Italian family. There were 5 boys in my family. And every Christmas, we had a tradition in my family on Christmas Day. We all sat around a TV that looked like this. And we watched a movie that taught me about life and loyalty and how business should be conducted. So imagine 5 boys from an Italian family gathered around the TV, watching this movie. And the movie a lot of people think that we watch was this one. That's a nice movie to watch on a holiday, but that's not the movie that my family watched. The one we watched that taught me about life, loyalty, and how business should be conducted was this movie. And I know that's kind of weird, but that's my family, not me. Anyway, that got me interested in the mob. And so what happens next is I get sent to Kansas City as a new FBI agent in 1988. And I'm working a mob case. And we have a phone of Tony that we've tapped. The FBI is listening to this conversation between Tony as he gets a call from Joe. Now, there's a lesson here. So watch what happens next as Tony gets a call from Joe. Tony says, Joe, I'm really glad you called. And Joe goes, yeah, why? And Tony goes, I got a little problem. I think the FBI is tapping my phone. And Joe goes, well, what are you going to do about it? And Tony goes, well, I got a new number. So here we go, lacking any common sense. Joe goes, okay, good. Give me the number. Now, Tony gets a little common sense and he says, wait a minute, I better not give it to you on the phone. I'll meet you for lunch and I'll give it to you then. And Joe says, well, I can't meet you for lunch. And Tony says, okay, I'll give it to you now on the phone, but I'll give it to you backwards. That's right. He gave him the number in reverse order. So what did the FBI do? We got our best cryptologists on that one right away. We had the number figured out in record time. It only took us 6 months with the powerful computers we had in 1988. But I used that example. It's a true story, not the 6-month part, but about the phone call, because it illustrates a key point. How important is common sense in everyday life? When it comes to fraud prevention, it's important too, because what criminals try to do is manipulate our thinking so we're not using common sense. They want us to use emotions to make decisions, and that's the basis of their tricks. So let's look at some of those. I'll start off with an account takeover. As the term implies, this is where a bad guy gets access to an online account. Now, one way they can do that is by putting malicious software on a computer. Now, if you look at this email, if you got an email that looked like it was coming from the IRS, you might have an emotional reaction. But opening the email will probably not cause harm to your computer, but if you look at the contents of it, this doesn't make sense already, because if this were the case, the IRS is going to send you a letter, not an email. So this already doesn't make sense. But emotionally, some people may click on that attachment, and that could put malicious software on your computer. Now, that's where the word malware comes from, and the operative word there is malicious. So let's say this happens to someone. He doesn't know it's happened. In the background, that malware is recording his keystrokes as he types those in to log into his various online accounts. The criminal gets those through the malware, the one that sent that email to begin with, and now the criminal may log into those accounts and get access, potentially. Now, if this happens, it's very serious, but it doesn't have to happen if we're just careful where we click. So the rule is, if you get an email from an unknown sender or a suspicious sender, or one that doesn't make sense, we just don't click on an attachment in the email, and that will keep us safe from this threat. So another thing you can do that's very powerful, take your mouse and hold it over the sender. Now we're holding it there, not clicking on the lock like we did earlier that revealed that certificate I mentioned. But here we're holding it over the sender, hovering, and that reveals the true sender. It's not from the IRS. That's from someone with a Gmail account. So another indication that this is a trick. Now, another way they could take over our accounts is through a fake website. Now, this is a real example of an email that looked like it was coming from a big bank. Oh, you've heard the name of the bank, and I've taken out their logo. I've taken out their name. I don't think they want to be in my example, but I'll just put one in there to show you how easy it is for criminals to make things look real. They want people to click on the link, and the enticement here, the emotion, is they're going to pay you money to fill out a survey. Now, you can see that at the bottom. Now, that gets some people to click on that link, and the link looks like it might be valid. It has the right format for a bank link. Remember, I've taken out the real bank name, but that may not be the true link. It could be spoofed to trick us. In other words, we're not seeing the right thing. But what you can do, again, is hover to discover, help you remember that term, hover over the link like we did with the sender. In this case, we're going to see where that link is really going to send us to. And that's not the bank site. That's some other weird site. Not sure what that is, but it's not the bank site as I would believe it to be. .ua is also a two-letter country code. Now, if you see that in a web address, at the end of it, the end of the address, or before the first single slash like we see here, that indicates that that website is hosted in another country. Now, what country is that? That happens to be the Ukraine. Every country has a two-letter code. You can always look those up if you want. I don't think any bank is hosting websites in the Ukraine, at least in our country, especially with what's going on there now. So what's the trick, though? The criminals set up this fake website. It's an imposter site, looks like the real thing, and they're hoping that people will put their credentials in there to try to get money from a survey that really doesn't exist. Now, the criminal's probably monitoring that in real time, and he's going to type those into the real site to try to get money. Now, most banks are not going to let that happen that easily, but still, we have to keep online banking secure, which it generally is. But we're going to make sure it stays that way, and we're going to log in directly. So links that send us to financial sites are generally not a good thing to click on. We're going to make sure we go there directly. Now, we need a backup plan because, well, in the FBI, we have backups for everything in case things went wrong. We're going to make sure we have a backup here just in case someone gets access to a bank account fraudulently. And that backup plan is to set alerts on our financial accounts so we'll know when money moves. And if it doesn't match our records, then we can take steps immediately. So setting up alerts is a great way to be notified just in case something happens. They're easy to set up and easy to use. Now, what about mobile banking? Is that secure? Actually, mobile banking is very secure. Those apps are locked behind many layers of security, but we have a role in mobile security as well, and that is keeping the passcode on the device to protect it. It could be enhanced by fingerprints and facial recognition to log in, but we have to keep that locked down. That keeps the app safe and also the information safe. You probably have more information on a mobile device than you have in a file cabinet at home. So I want to make sure that we protect that. Now let's get back to those alerts. Suppose you got an alert on the mobile device. How do you know that the alert is legitimate? Because the criminals are sending out fake alerts too. Well, in this case, we would just call the number on the back of our credit card, and we know we're talking to the right people. Now here's kind of a funny one. I don't mean haha funny, I mean kind of devious funny. And that a criminal has set up a web address that looks like a real thing, only if you look very closely, it's not. Can you spot where it's not? Actually, this had a bad name in it. I've taken that out. But .com is not actually .com at all. It's .corn. So the criminal set up a web address to try to trick us, hoping people will not look at that carefully, press on the link, and that would send you to the browser on your mobile device. Now, generally, you wouldn't want to use the browser on a mobile device to access a bank account or any website because that's just going to be more difficult, right? Very cumbersome. So we're going to always use the app instead. And because this is a trick, we certainly don't want to log in that way. We'll go to the app and do our business with the bank through the app, and we know we're going to be in the right place. And remember, that's locked behind many layers of security. Suppose you get an email on that phone, you open it up like I did here. Again, another real example. I got an email that looked like it was coming from PayPal. I remember there's something that's bad that's happened. My account is temporarily restricted. Always look for those clues, those red flags, which indicate fraud. Something bad is happening. You got to take action. But you can't hover over that link because you don't have a mouse on a mobile device. What you can do is press and hold. It's also called a long press. On a mobile device, that will reveal the true site you're going to be sent to. Now, you'll see that's not PayPal site. That's some other weird looking site. And it's set up in a foreign country. Remember, if you see those two letters at the end of a web address or before the single slash, .ac specifies the Ascension Island. It's not only a country, it's an island. And it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, 1,000 miles from land. And yet one person on that island where only 800 people live, one person is trying to steal my PayPal credentials with this phishing email. Cybercrime can range from nations who attack other nations, groups in those nations who try to extract ransomware by holding oil companies hostage, like we saw earlier last year. Or it could be somebody on a small island that's trying to steal my PayPal credentials. So be careful and be vigilant, and know that you can preview links on a mobile device by pressing and holding because we don't have a mouse. Suppose you wanted to visit the Ascension Island. I don't recommend it. I haven't been there, but it doesn't look very enticing. You can only get there by boat. There's not even a hotel there, actually. But 800 miles away, just a mere stone's throw, there's another island that has a hotel, and it has free Wi-Fi at the hotel. Would you use that free Wi-Fi for sensitive information? I say 5 reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. In fact, whether you're at a coffee shop down the street, an airport, a restaurant, public Wi-Fi is generally not secure. So we want to use a virtual private network. You can have those for about $5 a month. There's some great ones you can get online for mobile devices and for computers. That'll keep your signal protected if you're out and about. You don't need them at home, but you need them for public Wi-Fi networks, or use the cellular network of your phone, which I often do, versus public Wi-Fi if I'm traveling. Let's get back to account takeovers, this time for email accounts. Email accounts are targets of criminals because they know if they can get access to an email account, they can learn a lot about us and use that as a basis for committing fraud. Now, here's an example of how they might do that. Again, an emergency here, you got to fix this. There's a problem with your security. So if you clicked on that link in this phishing email, you'd be taken to a fake Yahoo login page. Now, that's designed to steal a Yahoo user's login credentials. Now, you may not have a Yahoo account. Maybe you have a Gmail or MSN or another email provider. There's lots of target emails for those individuals as well. And there's always going to be something emotional, right? Something to get people to act. So you'll do something right away. In this case, you're gonna reset the password. But I like to think of it this way. Sometimes we're looking at emails and we're distracted. Maybe we're on our mobile device and maybe there's other things going on. We have a lot of emails we want to get through, and we just want to do things quickly. And I just say, if you ever had come across something where they want to take advantage of emotions and you see these inflammatory words like this, I just say this: slow down. Think about this. Does this make sense that this should be happening? And why should I have to reset my password? I'm already in my email account in this example. That's going to take you to a fake email login page, and the criminal's wanting you to put your credentials in there. Now, I'll get back to that fake login page in a minute. When you log into email accounts, once you get to the right place, save it as a bookmark or a favorite in your browser, so you know you'll be in the right place. You don't have to go there by searching for it. You have to go there through links, which may put you in the wrong place. And we want to make sure we're there, so save it as a bookmark or a favorite. Same with financial accounts. Strong passwords are a necessity to protect email accounts, and we'll talk more about a way to get rid of passwords. Would you like to hear about that? That's at the very end of the presentation. Passphrases. I think you might like that part. So strong passwords essential, or passphrases. And then also one more thing. More and more you're seeing this for financial accounts, but also for email accounts as well. Multi-factor authentication. It's a great way to keep our accounts protected. In fact, a criminal who's 6,000 miles away or 6 miles away, they don't have your mobile device, they can't log in. Now, you can use text messaging like you see here. You can use authenticator apps. It's imperative to use these for financial accounts, but also for email accounts now, because those are continuing to be a target for criminals. It's a great way to keep those bad guys out of the account. Back to that fake login page. So let's say a person is victimized like this. Let's say a guy named Mike Smith puts his credentials in there. What's going to happen to Mike's email account? Well, the criminal's going to go in there and kind of look at things. And one thing they might do is try to victimize Mike's friends, or his contacts at least, and send an email like this. Have you ever gotten one that has this format from a friend? And you're probably thinking, why did my friend send me this weird looking email? Well, it wasn't them. It was someone who hijacked their email account. Maybe they're trying to install malware on your computer through your friend's email account, or maybe try to steal your login credentials or make your computer hostage, where they extract a ransomware from you, or hold it hostage, I should say. More about ransomware in a second. So even in emails we get from people we know, we have to be careful where we click, especially if it takes this format. And they also go after Mike's money. Now, they could do that in a variety of ways, but they're going to see who his financial advisor is. Now, this is a true story. I made up, I've changed the names here to protect the innocent. But Mike has a financial advisor named Mary Jones, and Mike bought a boat, and he emailed Mary and said, I need money wired to this place so I can buy my boat. Mary called Mike up to verify that the money, the request was legitimate, and it was. Then Mike's email account got hijacked, and the criminal read the past email about the boat. Thought he could trick Mary into sending money for a trailer for the boat. Criminal's pretty crafty this way, but Mary didn't let her guard down. She called Mike again, and it wasn't a legitimate transaction this time, and the money was never sent. Now, your Fulcrum financial advisor will never wire money without calling you first. They have your back, and they're watching your assets, and that's to protect you. But we need to use that same protocol in our personal lives as well, if we ever wire money. And when you think about it, the most money we would ever wire in our lifetime is probably not for a boat purchase, unless you're Jeff Bezos building a $500 million yacht. It would be for a home purchase. And that brings me to my next point, and that is wire transfer fraud. It starts when the email account of a business that deals with home purchases is victimized. It's hijacked, and the criminals can see who's getting ready to buy a house. And we'll target those people for real estate wire transfer fraud. The latest report we have, the next one will be out in March, but you can see that lots of victims, lots of losses. And the 4 individual examples that you see on the screen are people that have lost that much money because they wired it without calling first to make sure, getting a verbal to make sure it's going to the right place. They could have saved that tremendous loss that you see on the screen. So when we wire money, we're always going to make sure it's going to the right place, right? And we're going to call at a phone number, not that's in the email. That could be part of the trick. We're to call the number we know to be for that organization, and we determine that independently. So we're not a victim of wire transfer fraud. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is something I mentioned earlier, is ransomware. Now, ransomware results when a particular type of malware gets on a computer, and it basically encrypts all your files, and you need a key to decrypt them. And that key is held by the criminal. So it could be your Excel spreadsheets, it could be your Word files, it could be photos. You can't see anything until you pay a ransom to the criminal. You may even get a ransom note that looks like this. Now, it's not $1 million ransom, as you've seen businesses pay in the past several months, but it's a smaller amount of money, and they start a countdown clock that tells you got to pay up or you'll never see your files alive again, just like they used to kidnap people. And a lot of people say, Jeff, if I pay the ransom, will I get my key to decrypt my files? And the answer is generally yes, but not necessarily. You just don't know. There's no guarantees. But the criminals are running a business here, and they do want satisfied customers. You may even get an email later asking you to fill out a satisfaction survey, right? And then you come to this page where they want your opinion so they could be better at this in the future. It's almost gotten to this point, but it is a business, and the business is thriving on people paying ransom. But if we're careful where we click, we'll never have to pay a ransom. But just in case, we're going to have a backup. Now, this time I mean a literal backup. Take the copies of all your important files and put them on a hard drive, stick it in a drawer, and back up those files as often as you want on that hard drive. That could be Excel spreadsheets, Word files, family photos, as I mentioned earlier. Also put them in the cloud. And this way you'll have 2 places to recover your files from. And at the very minimum, we can get them from the hard drive, but the cloud copy will be automatically synced, so you'll have a very recent copy of that. This is the best way to stay safe from ransomware and to prevent that problem from occurring in the future for anybody. As ransom is not collected, we're not going to be experiencing this problem anymore. All right, I've reached the last portion of my presentation, and I have 3 tips to keep your computer safe. So the first is to beware of pop-ups. Now, pop-ups can serve a purpose. They can also be nefarious. Generally, the scarier they look, the more connected they are to fraud. Remember that emotional component? Don't click anywhere in this pop-up. I know what you're thinking. Jeff, I got this big pop-up on my screen. How do I get out of it? I can't click even on the X. That's right. But on the handout that you'll get later from your Fulcrum financial advisor, you will see information on how to get out of that. Right? Keep that by your computer, so you'll be able to use 3 keys on your keyboard. Simply hold down those keys, whether it's a Windows or a Mac, and that brings up a task manager. And let me show you how that works. So the task manager is going to show you what's generating that pop-up. It's not those first 4 programs. I recognize those. It's probably this one. So I'm going to highlight that, hit End Task, pop-up will disappear from the screen. So the best way to get out of a pop-up that has that kind of warning in it is just to click, do it as the way I described. You'll see that on the handout. There's also tech support scams related to pop-ups where they ask you to call a number. And if you call that number, you'll be talking to someone who tells you there's a problem with your computer and they can fix it for you. Don't worry. Don't worry, they can fix it for you if you give them remote access to your computer. You don't want to do that under these circumstances. They can actually put malware on your computer, steal information, and even worse than that. If you hear these 2 terms in response to, in connection with a conversation like this, gift card, hang up the phone. Gift cards are the preferred method of criminals to get money because it can't be traced to them. It can't be reversed. It's just like cash, right? It's another trick criminals use to try to make us think they're fixing a problem and getting money from us using gift cards. Now, from the FBI crime report for 2020, tech support scams are kind of low on the list, but the amount of money is still huge. So we're not going to be victimized by that. And hopefully that problem will go away if we're just careful about who we respond to and even not calling that number. Romance scams are number 2 on the list and behind hijacking of business email accounts. But we should never be victimized by a romance scam, and people in your family shouldn't be either. The criminals are very, very devious, right? They read obituaries online. They know who's vulnerable. They target men and women, widows, widowers, even younger people. It starts out as a fairy tale, ends as a nightmare when money is sent. And if you meet someone online and they want you to send them money, it is 100% of the time a scam. There's no room for error there. And if you have people in your family or friends that might be vulnerable to this, keep the lines of communication open so you can serve as that trusted resource if it gets to the point where they're being asked to send money. 100% of the time, it's a scam. Now, other types of scams rely upon emotions. Fear is a big emotional driver. Does it make sense that someone in law enforcement has an arrest warrant for you, yet you can get out of it by paying them online by a gift card? That doesn't make sense either. But do you think the FBI is locking up computers and asking you for $200 to unlock your computer in the form of a gift card? Are you kidding? When I worked for the FBI, I only asked for cash to unlock computers. And it had to be small bills and non-sequential serial numbers. Yeah, that was my MO when I worked for the FBI. But on a more serious note, greed's a motivator too. You can't win a lottery that you didn't enter. You shouldn't have to pay money to get money from a lottery that you didn't enter either. And what's this astronaut with $15 million? Well, that was the contents of a Nigerian letter. Yeah, would you believe it? There was a Nigerian astronaut on a Soviet space station, been there for 30 plus years. Now, sometimes when you see scams, whether they're as ridiculous as this or more sophisticated, there's always going to be something that doesn't make sense. And what doesn't make sense here, is that why would they need your money when they already have money? So don't let emotions impede your ability to see the things that don't make sense. And let's not be manipulated that way. Remember the importance of common sense. Should you unsubscribe from emails like that? In fact, people often ask me, Jeff, I get these Nigerian letters, I'm going to mess with them, right? I'm going to talk to them and drag them on, and because I don't want to waste their time. Don't do that. Now, you can unsubscribe from emails from known entities. People you've done business with. Federal law says they have to take you off their list. But if you're getting spam or you're getting scams, don't let them know it's an active email address. Don't reply in any way. Just send it to your spam folder so you'll get less of those eventually. Otherwise, you'll get on a list and you'll end up getting more if you try to reply or unsubscribe. In this next section in this category is the simplest thing you can do because it generally happens automatically. You want to keep your software updated. If you have mobile devices, if you have an Android, an iPhone, an Apple computer, or a Windows computer, when you get messages, keep it updated. Not only does it fix bugs, it also fixes vulnerabilities that the criminals become aware of, keeps us safe against the latest threats as we try to fortify those defenses. So keep your software updated across all your devices. And then finally, this is the favorite part of my presentation. It has to do with passphrases. No one likes passwords. And passphrases solve two problems related to passwords. First of all, if you have a simple password, criminals can crack it with brute force methods. They can use a computer and powerful software to crack it in a matter of minutes or even less than that, right? You can't do that with passphrases because they're super strong. Right? Also, if you have a strong password and you use it across multiple devices, criminals can get it in one place. I don't mean devices, I mean accounts and devices, but criminals can get it in one place, a hack that may not even be your fault. Yahoo, email a hack. You know, we had LinkedIn hack, we had Twitter got hacked. And if you use the same password for those places that you use for other accounts, they could be in there too. That's called credential stuffing. Passphrases are unique. You only use it one time, so they can never get access through this credential stuffing technique, right? Who doesn't like a 2-for-1 special? You get that with passphrases. Strong password has multiple characters that offers complexity. And for a while, this worked really well. But as we started to get more and more online accounts, people didn't want to come up with a unique strong password. So what we generally did is reuse the strong passwords because we didn't have to come up with a unique one for all these accounts. I can't see you all now, but if you just kind of raise your hand if you reuse passwords, yeah, if you're not raising your hand, you're a liar because we all do it. I've even done it before for simplicity, but I found a better way, right? We're going to use passphrases because you can make each one unique. And this is the fun part. You come up with a way to make a passphrase that's unique to a site. So what's unique about Amazon? Amazon has free delivery, right? In 2 days, 1 day, sometimes same day. I think Amazon's moving towards free delivery yesterday. You're actually going to get things before you even order them. It's amazing. They're going in that direction. Anyway, see how my mind works? So there's my passphrase for Amazon. How fun that is, but also super strong because of its length and it's unique to Amazon. Now here's another example. Social Security account. We talked about that earlier. I like this one. We hope they show us the money someday. But the thing is, Social Security Administration doesn't like that. Even though it's a good passphrase based on its length, they still want complexity, and some accounts are still going to require the complexity. Okay, that's okay. We will have complexity with the passphrase. There you go. Make the S a capital, make the O a 0, put a $sign at the end. We're good to go. We have complexity, but we've met their standards, and we also have a passphrase. So you can still do that, even if they require that. But here's the thing: no one can remember all their passphrases, even if you have a unique way of coming up with them, like I tried to show you. But so what do you do? Should you have your browser store your passphrases? Well, you can, but there's a risk there. If someone had physical access to your computer and it was unlocked, they could maybe get access to those accounts. All right, that's one thing. And the second thing is, if someone got access through malware, they may be able to access those files where passphrases are stored or passwords are stored and possibly get access to those. So to be extra careful, use a passphrase manager. There's some listed on the website, also called password managers, but same thing. Keeper, Dashlane, 1Password, LastPass, Bitwarden are 5 examples. Check out the ones based on price and features and see what you like. I would use a password or a passphrase manager to manage your passphrases. It's a lot better than letting your browser store them. All right, we have covered so much, so I want to go back and just touch on my key points today, and then I'll turn it back over to our host. So, setting up your online Social Security account is important to prevent Social Security benefits fraud. So make sure you set that up, and particularly if you're 62 or older. Freeze all 4 of your credit reports, and don't forget you protect kids in your family as well. Watch out for fake phone calls. Don't give information to people who call you on the phone. Okay, and then your mail and your trash should be protected as we've described. Better yet, get less mail, have less trash, sign up for electronic delivery. It's a nice, secure option. You'll have less paper to deal with. Keep that malware off your computer. Don't click on attachments and emails from unknown senders, suspicious senders, ones that don't make sense. And then also log into email accounts directly, not through links, and save it as a bookmark in your browser so you'll never be getting your email account hijacked. Also, same thing with financial accounts. And when money moves, you want to know about it. So set up alerts on your financial accounts so you know when that happens. When you move money on purpose, always call to verify it's going to the right place. And then verify your login, or have the online account do that by sending you a code to log in. That's called multi-factor authentication. It's a great way to keep email accounts protected and also financial accounts. And then finally, use passphrases. And I'm just going to use one more example here before we end it. And I was trying to come up with a passphrase for my favorite streaming service. I remember that my family used to watch The Godfather as a kid, growing up on Christmas Day. That was our tradition on a TV that looked like this. And we had to take a break to celebrate Christmas. About halfway through the movie, we would take a break. And about halfway through a 3-hour movie is 90 minutes. Coincidentally, at that 90-minute point, right, there was a phrase in the movie. Get it? Phrase. It was this one: leave the gun, take the cannolis. When we heard that phrase in the movie, we stopped the movie. My mom got out a big box of cannolis and we celebrated Christmas in my family. I know that's weird, but that's my family, not me. Anyway, I'm going to use that as my passphrase for my favorite streaming service. Bet you can't guess what this is. Yeah, leave the gun, take the cannolis. I'm going to take out the spaces in addition to taking out the cannolis. And there we go. You have your strong passphrase. It's strong against brute force hacking, against credential stuffing. And you can have strong passphrases too, but don't use this one. It's already taken. I'm stopping right there. And I'm going to turn it back over to Katie. And there's a book I have on cybercrime. It's a great resource, a lot more information. It's on my website. Check it out. It's only half the price of James Comey's book. So it's a great deal too, if you're interested in that. And Katie, I'm going back to you now. Thank you so much for everyone that attended this event. It was nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I think I speak for all of us that that was very, very valuable and we appreciate it. We do have a few follow-up questions that we asked the audience to share with us in advance of this seminar. And so the first question is, what's the most secure way to shop online?
You know, there's a lot of ways to pay. I think when you say shop, they probably mean how do you pay online. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways to pay now. You can use Apple Pay, you can use PayPal, Venmo, and all sorts of methods for paying. I just use a credit card online. And I know that the credit card company is going to guarantee that if there's fraud, if someone got my credit card number, they're going to refund that amount. And they're also going to give me a new credit card. And you make sure you're on a secure site before you put in your credit card information, right? So you make sure there's that padlock there. Put in your credit card information and keep a good eye on your credit card transactions. Have alerts set out. If anyone gets your credit card information, you can handle that quickly. Don't use debit cards ever online, because that's direct access to your bank account. And if they got that information, you'll get it refunded from the bank, but they can drain your account dry, and that leaves you hanging for a while till you get it all worked out. With the credit card, you're dealing with the credit card company's money, not your money. So credit card transactions, I think, is the best way.
Great. All right, next question. Which social media platform is the most, should parents be most concerned about, and why?
Well, it's funny you should ask this question. I'm actually working on a presentation now for parents to help keep their kids safe online and on mobile devices as well, because that's what they're using all the time. And I've been doing some research on this. And actually, I think the worst offender when it comes to the social media is TikTok. It's very popular with a lot of age ranges, but the problem is there's very little controls out there. There's, you know, people can log in. You're supposed to be 13 to have an account. There's very little checking they do. So kids that younger than 13 are getting on. There's inappropriate videos out there. There's sexual content. There's violent content. And there's this is inappropriate content for young kids, and there's very little they do to keep anyone safe from that. And so I'd say that would be the top offender, but there's so many other ones too, where kids can be influenced by these inappropriate themes, And it's up to the parents really to vet all these sites, to know what kids have on their mobile devices, to make sure they're not being exposed to this prematurely.
Thank you. All right, last question. What information on social media do we need to be most mindful of the dangers?
I think what that's asking is, what should we not put out there on social media? Well, just keep in mind that any personal information that you put out there can be used to build a profile of you, right? So from an identity theft standpoint, if you had your birth date on there, that's just one piece of information that can be used with other sources to maybe build this profile that can be used to commit fraud. So I don't like to put my real birth date on any social media. So that eliminates that vulnerability. Obviously things like your personal address and ways that they can locate you should be kept off social media sites. And any of the questions that are sometimes asked of us to help verify our identity when you're logging into official sites, like when you go to freeze your credit reports, you're going to be asked some questions. Where did you bank at this particular time? It'll give you some multiple choice answers. Where'd you go to high school? And those type of security questions, a lot of people can find those answers on Facebook, which may allow them to get into those financial sites. So be careful about security questions that may be able to be answered on social media. So just be cognizant of that as well.
Well, thank you so much for those responses and for all of the valuable information that you shared today. We're going to wrap up at this time, but we look forward to seeing what books and the new seminar on parents and social media with their kids. We look forward to being in touch about that. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.